I'm less than 2 months away from leaving on my second cross-country motorcycle trip from Portland, Oregon to Boston, Massachusetts. Last year I rode almost entirely on Route 2 through the northern plains and all that. This year I'm leaving Newport, Oregon, and I'm going to ride historic Route US 20 all the way from the Oregon coast to Kenmore Square in Boston, Massachusetts, near where the Red Sox play. It's going to be, 3,300 miles to get there, something like that. And I'm going to try to stay on US Route 20 the whole way, even through Yellowstone, which it doesn't really sort of officially go through Yellowstone, but it kind of does. We'll figure it out. But the big difference between this year and last year is this year I'm going to totally simplify everything about this trip, right down to what kind of map I use. Last year I took way too much stuff, like a lot of stuff. 2 giant panniers, plus a tail bag, plus a tank bag. This year I'm stripping it down. I want to find myself an old leather bag or even a new leather bag that I can strap onto the back of the bike and just go. Something about the size of that Lone Rider bag, but something with a little bit more character. You know what I'm saying? I have one from Trip Machine, which I kind of like, but it's not exactly right. I gotta look for something else. I'm also gonna try not to do the whole GPS thing. I'm gonna try to bring some paper maps. I'm gonna not strap a Chiggy or anything to the bike. I'm gonna have a phone mount for when I absolutely need it. But for the most part, I'm really gonna just try to go analog on this trip. We'll see what happens. Which leads me to the choice of motorcycle that I'll be taking on this trip. I have 3 motorcycles in my garage. I have a Royal Enfield Himalayan 450. I have a Triumph Scrambler 1200 XE, and I've got this Moto Guzzi V7 Sport. My original plan all along was always to take the Himalayan. And then the Guzzi came into my life. Now last year when I did the cross-country trip, I rode on a Moto Guzzi V85TT. It was great. I enjoyed every piece of it. The Himalayan is a fantastic bike, and when I got it with the intention of doing some long-distance travel, up to and including the cross-country trip this year. When I got the Moto Guzzi V7, things kind of changed in my mind a little bit. The whole ethos of the trip started to change in my brain. So I started thinking, okay, I'm going to take the Moto Guzzi. And then the Triumph Scrambler 1200 XE came along. To say that the 1200 XE is my everything bike is an understatement. I rode this road yesterday on that bike, and I can't think of a more perfect motorcycle for a road like this. It ate it up. It was so much fun. And so when that bike came into my life, my first initial thought was, yeah, this is the obvious bike. This is the bike that I'm taking across the country. But the more I thought about it and the more time I spent on the Moto Guzzi, I started changing my mind. While this bike isn't as big or as powerful or as sexy as the Scrambler 1200, nor is it purpose-built for a trip like that, like the Himalayan is, with its racks and its space and its upright, stretched-out seating position and all that. There's something about the Moto Guzzi V7 that slots itself in to my idea of a cross-country motorcycle trip like any other bike that I either own or can really even think of at this point, except for one. I may have mentioned this in the past, but my dream in life is to get myself a Harley Davidson Sportster 1200, something like that, you know, like the bare bones version of a Harley, strap a leather bag to the back of it and just go across the country. That's my ideal idea of a cross-country motorcycle trip. Now, I don't own a Harley 1200, nor do I plan on owning a Harley Sportster 1200 anytime soon. The Moto Guzzi, for me, comes really close to the experience. Some people call the Moto Guzzi the Garlic Davidson. Yeah. I'm not sure whether to be offended by that as an Italian person. I actually think it's adorable. Anyway, while the Moto Guzzi is much more refined, I think, than a Harley is, it sort of does have that stripped back, it just feels like a motorcycle feeling about it that I'm looking for when it comes to doing this trip. And so, with that, at this point I'm 95% sure that I'm taking the Moto Guzzi V7 when I leave here in June. Now, the bike is freshly out of the shop again, where it had its oil level tested, because I was sort of convinced that it was burning oil excessively. And the results of that test sort of confirm, I think, that it is. While it's within tolerances according to Moto Guzzi, it's definitely eating a little bit more oil per 600 miles than I feel comfortable with. I'm kind of hoping that settles in once the bike is completely fully broken in. A lot of people say these bikes need 6, 7, 8,000 miles to get fully 100% broken in. And to be honest, I don't think I had any oil burning on my Moto Guzzi V85TT when I did the cross-country trip last year. So I'm hoping this just works out, because I really don't want to have to carry oil and a funnel and rags and all that stuff to add oil along the road. And buying oil along the trip is sort of a real pain, because this bike takes 10W60, which isn't easy to come by in motorcycle shops. So that's something I'm going to have to wrap my head around. Other than that, I'm thinking about putting a windscreen on this bike. I priced out the OEM Moto Guzzi windscreen, and it's not that bad. I think I can get it for about $300, or I could get a, non-OEM version of it and go with that. The luggage system is a real big open question for me right now. Like I said, I really want it to be sort of just a one-bag solution. I want that one bag that I'm not only going to have for this trip, but I'm going to have for the rest of my life. It's one of those, I want to buy it once, cry once, and then just have this beautiful quality leather bag with me for the rest of my life that I take on all of my journeys. If I can find that before I leave in June, great. If I can't, then I'm going to have to think about alternatives. One alternative is I go with the Hepco and Becker SIBO system and get a couple of nice panniers to stick on this thing and just go with that, and maybe a small duffel to add to it. But I don't want a ton of room in my luggage. I don't know, right now this bag is what, 30 liters or something like that? Something maybe a little bit bigger than this. I have a 50-liter version of this at home that I could take if I really needed to. It's not really sexy. It's not the kind of thing that, fits into the whole ethos of the trip, but it works, and that's really all I can ask for at the end of the day. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I gotta find that bag, and that's where you come in. Y'all have any recommendations where I could find a super high-quality leather bag? Probably black, but maybe super dark brown. I don't know, something that'll go with the gray of this bike, something that'll go with my Scrambler if I want to put it on there as well. It's just something that I will have for the rest of my life. I'm willing to pay for it, but it has to be fantastic. Doesn't have to be waterproof. I can always get a waterproof cover for it or whatever. I don't know. I know none of this is ideal. I could go to Moscow Moto, buy myself the most beautiful duffel ever that's completely functional, and be done with it, but it doesn't really fit the aesthetic of what I'm trying to go for. You might ask, but what's up with worrying about the aesthetic of your travel? Like, just go and don't worry about stuff like that. Sure, that's a completely valid point, but I'm me. Like, that's not who I am. The aesthetics, not the aesthetics so much as the ethos, I guess. I want the stuff that I have to fit how I think and my aesthetics when it comes to design and quality and all that stuff, right? I don't want to just throw crap on the back of my bike and go. I want to have stuff with me that I absolutely believe in, that I know that I'm going to have for a very long time, that we're going to put a lot of miles on together. And that brings me back to the Moto Guzzi. This Moto Guzzi is something that I hope to have for a very, very, very long time. And I want to have experiences with it that I can look at this bike 5 years from now and see a scratch on the tank and say, oh, I remember I got that in Montana when I flipped it over a cliff or whatever I'm gonna do. You know, I want a bike that I've had for a long time that has a lot of experiences on it and thousands of miles on it. And I just, when it comes time to retire this bike, I want it to have lived a good life, and I want to live that good life along with it. I don't know if that sounds stupid or not, but that's the feeling I'm looking for, and that's sort of the feeling I'm looking for in the bag that I take with me. Even, I bought this overshirt yesterday, it's called. I think it's called the Overshirt Worker 2 from Revit, and I absolutely love it because I know how it's going to wear. You know, it's super protective. It's CE level 2 protective. It's warm enough for a day like this. I can throw stuff under it, but it just looks unassuming, like I've had it for 1,000 years and like I'm going to have it for another 1,000 years. That's exactly the type of gear that I'm looking for. Same with these pants. I bought these pants recently. They're John Doe pants or something like that, made in Germany. And I kind of bought them because my old black Revit pants are just completely worn out and I needed a new pair of riding pants. So I invested in these, and this is one of the best motorcycle purchases I think I've ever made. I absolutely love these pants. They're, like I said, the John Doe Defender cargo pants, and they're just phenomenal. And so this might actually be the outfit, the riding outfit that I wear across the country. I know I have the Aerostich suit, and I'm super contemplating wearing that, but I want the simplicity of something like this. I want to walk into a restaurant or a store or whatever and talk to people and get to know people and not have the barrier of looking like I'm sort of super ADV rider type guy. You know what I'm saying? None of this probably sounds important to you because it's not important. It's just part of building this idealized version of a trip that I really want to take. I want to craft this little world of mine into something that is my own, to something that I've always wanted. Just fulfill a dream. And my dream is bare bones travel across America on a super stripped down motorcycle that is just mechanically expressive and beautiful and unassuming and faster than it looks and all that stuff. You can tell, maybe, that I'm slightly excited by all of this. Anyway, the point of all of this is to say that the sort of dreaming portion of this trip is over, and now it's getting to the point where I have to actually make some serious plans. Like, I've got 7 or 8 weeks left. I don't really care because last year I overplanned and none of it made a difference, so I'm much more chill this time around. I'm just sort of going with the flow, but I'm at the point now where I have to, fish or cut bait. So help me find a bag. Oh, here's the other thing. I mentioned earlier that I want to go analog as far as maps go, right? So I'm going to try not to rely on GPS very much at all. Not hooking up one of those CarPlay things. I'm going to keep my phone mount on the handlebars and use the phone sparingly, only when I need it. But I want to do this with paper maps as much as possible, especially on the way out, because it's just Route 20. I mean, how could I screw that up? Yeah, well, I know how I could screw that up, but help me decide what kind of map to use. I know nothing about maps. I haven't used a map since I was in search and rescue 20 years ago or whatever it was. Do y'all have recommendations on a good map or a really good atlas, or what would you take on a cross-country trip if you were purely just relying on paper maps? Because I have no idea. Anyway, that's it. That's the first official video on my cross-country motorcycle trip from Newport, Oregon to Boston, Massachusetts to wherever the hell I end up after that. If you like this video, here's a playlist over here of my last cross-country trip, and I'll catch you on the next one. Stay safe.